Welcome to Coworking Insights podcast. Coworking Insights. We're going to get you data in little bites.
Welcome everyone to Coworking Insights. It's actually our inaugural edition of the podcast. I'm Sam Marks, and I'm joined here with our CTO, Paul Diaz. Paul, how about a little hey? And our operations director, Madison Maidman. Madison, how are you doing today?
I am great.
Good to hear. So the idea of this podcast is to share unique data that we have from the co-working industry. We've been able to access this data through our partner site, coworker.com. And the idea is that we're going to share this in kind of small bite-sized episodes. So today what we're going to talk about, just to get started on this first episode, we're actually going to talk about global desk price averages. We have a big report coming out next week. And hopefully this is a really good and fun and interactive way that we can share data. If we do our job right, it'll come off that way. So what I wanted to do on this first one is we wanted to have Paul first talk a little bit about how we pulled this data. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go and talk about how global price averages stack up right now and talk about a couple of the cities that we're currently in. And hopefully you guys find it interesting. So Paul, why don't you kind of start just sharing a little bit about the data and how we were able to obtain it?
Yeah, for sure. So that's right. I mean, it was a few weeks ago, we were reviewing the data again. And one of the things we wanted to make sure and validate that the data was accurate and we had correct numbers. We only took verified spaces and we made sure that we snipped out any prices that were over 1,000 and any prices that were under 20, just in case spaces, inaccurately listed their pricing, because those numbers won't be right. So this gave us some really interesting data. Actually, Sam, do you want to talk about the points of the global averages to start off to begin with that?
Yeah, I think that's a good grounding base for going forward. Then we'll talk about some of our markets. So globally, you guys ready for it? Drum roll. So global price average right now, this is across, I think it's 9,600 verified spaces across the world, 155 countries. The global hot desk monthly average is $187. And that came off as a surprise to a few of us because last year in 2018, the same time, February 2018, the average was $205. So actually what we've had over the last 12 months is a slight reduction in global price averages. I have some ideas on why that might have happened, but Madison, you want to jump in with any conclusions on this?
Yeah, so I can kind of take it from the standpoint of Toronto. So last year, the average desk price was $259, and now we've seen a decrease to $241. Now, that's certainly not because Toronto's valuation for co-working space hot desk prices is going down, but I think it's because there's a huge emergence of co-working spaces that are opening up in the suburban areas and outside of the downtown core, which when co-working first started, it was really centralized to the core of downtown and metropolitan areas. So I think that could be a point as to why we're seeing some of the decrease in prices at the moment.
And Madison, what co-working space are you in now, and how does the Toronto average and global average compare to where you're at?
So at the moment, I'm currently working from a co-working space called Workhouse, which is located in the heart of downtown Toronto, right in the financial district. As mentioned before, the Toronto desk price has actually decreased. My monthly desk price has increased, though, in the past year. I think it's because it is right in the heart of downtown Toronto and there's a higher demand. So my price has increased $75 from last year, making my monthly membership fee approximately $264 a month, which is about $25 above the Toronto average and $77 above the current global average.
Interesting insight. So Paul, I know you're currently en route to Bali. Very jealous. I'm sure Madison is most because she's in the vortex right now in Toronto, but you're on the way to Bali, and I know we have a little bit of data that we pulled on Bali as well. How does Bali compare? And also, I think we have information on Bali from the year before, so might be an interesting comparison to this year.
Yeah, so actually to touch on that topic, and I'll give the averages right now. So Bali last year was at $92, and this year it's on average at $144. So I find that really interesting. And I'm going to talk about 2 points here. But to go back to the global averages and the points of why was the previous year a higher amount than this current year, I believe, and maybe I could be wrong about this, and I still have to verify this, but the number of growing spaces that are out there globally and how it's growing every year. On average, I think it's like last time we looked, it was like 15, 20% every year. There's more co-working spaces. And I think there's about 20,000 spaces right now out there currently. So as they grow and depending on certain continents or in Asia, these spaces tend to be a little bit cheaper. Mm-hmm. So I think maybe that might be a reason why these prices might be dropping. Now, interesting, getting back to Bali, we were talking about this before, but something I found interesting where I reside in Canggu, where I've been over the past few years in and out, there was only one co-working space. So the demand for that space was quite high. Sometimes they couldn't even accept day passes. They had to kick people out. They had to reject people. So some people were like questioning, this value is $300. And that was okay because there was the only co-working space, provided fantastic internet given the location that we were in. But knowing the demand, this would only going to be last for so long. And now there's 4 co-working spaces, I believe, in Canggu. And his price has dropped, I believe, about $50. So I messed that up. I'm dodging the numbers. It's $300 Canadian, I'm speaking, but it was $230 US. And now he's dropped it to about, I think the average is, he's on par with everyone else. I just checked this. It's about $180 a month.
Interesting. And on average right now, Bali looks like it's at 144, which is up from 92 last year, which sort of seems to make sense on a larger level or a higher, more holistic level, because everyone's talking about Bali now. Like Bali seemed to be kind of just a yoga retreat, but now you hear startups from around the world and entrepreneurs going there to live and also to set up their business, which indicates, probably spaces can get away with a higher price tag.
Yes, definitely. There's plenty of events that go on there. It's also great for taxes and finding really good talent that people tend to flock there now.
Interesting.
So it's hand in hand with a lot of good resources.
So I'll jump in here real quick with information on Tampa. So I'm in Tampa, Florida right now, where the price went up from $105 last year to $176. It's a really interesting market here. It's actually a very undeveloped co-working market. You have about 3 million people here, good economy. They're trying to make Tampa a lot more like Austin, Texas. It's got that vibe going on. It's got an excellent airport, and a lot of startups are moving here. You have great, it's a very tax efficient state because you don't have state income tax, but they're still under the average price per desk at 176 on the globals, 187. And I can be completely honest, the co-working space that I was in last month here was the best value co-working space I think I've ever been in. I won't name drop because I don't want to give preference to anyone, but the desks the membership was $80 a month. And this was probably one of the nicest co-working spaces I've been to anywhere in the world. I'm sure it was much more of like an introductory price to get people in, but full amenities, excellent coffee made there on site, and access to the best part of Tampa. I think that actually Tampa is one of the best markets right now that I see as an opportunity for co-working space managers if they want to expand. It's got a good economy. There's only 8 co-working spaces here, and there's really not any in the great areas except this one. I know WeWork's opening here pretty soon, but if you're a co-working space manager, I would give Tampa a good look. There's a lot of room for more co-working spaces here, and a lot of people that are hungry to get into co-working spaces for sure. So kind of in summary, global price averages moved from 205 last year down to 187, represented by a continued development of co-working across emerging markets and second-tier cities, and also price competition in downtown areas and developed markets. But I hope you guys all enjoyed this data. Madison, Paul, it's been great having you guys on for this inaugural one. And if anyone wants to check out more of this information, we're going to publish our 2019 Desk Price Index report on Coworking Insights next week. And we'll also have another podcast coming out next week with some of those takeaways. But feel free to check that out. It's going to be 38 pages of charts and analysis. We're going to break down prices by continent, country, and over 200 cities across the world. So I hope you guys enjoy that. Paul, anything else to leave us with in route to Bali?
I highly recommend everyone to subscribe to Coworking Insights, as Sam just mentioned. And obviously, I'm already aware this data, there's a lot of interesting results and intersections of data points that we will be releasing very soon.
Thanks for that, Paul. Have a good trip down to Bali. Madison, anything else to leave us with?
Yeah, I guess just piggybacking on Paul's note there, we do have access to a lot of data. So if there's ever anything that you would like to see or learn more about, shoot us an email and we'll do a data poll and even put together a dedicated episode for you to hear.
Thanks for that, Madison. Indeed, we will. And stay tuned to next week for more data analysis. And thanks for tuning in to our inaugural episode on Coworking Insights.
Thank you for listening to the Coworking Insights podcast. Stay tuned for our next episode and more.